Hi everyone. This is just going to be a short tutorial to show you a few different techniques for improving your data charts, both in Excel and in Illustrator. I'm going to do most of this in Excel because I think you guys are probably more familiar with Excel than Illustrator at this stage. But just at the end, I will show you a few things that you can do in Illustrator, such as adding symbols and things like that. Okay, so I'm looking at our seagrass chart that I showed last week in my presentation. So this is just the default Excel, line chart figure here. So just quickly, some of the quick things that you can do if you select the chart and then go to Chart Design, and under Quick Layout, there's going to be several options there that you can kind of cycle through, find one that you think you like, where the placement of the legend and, the lines, removing the data numbers from the chart, etc. So that one looks pretty good. It's nice and simple. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is make the fonts a bit bigger because the text in the axes is pretty hard to read. So that's pretty easy to do. Let's kind of make it a bit bigger. That's 16-point font. That's pretty readable. I like that one. Okay, so then if we look at the y-axis, the title has somehow disappeared and it's in all caps. So I'm just going to change that. Why is it in all caps? Okay, whatever, we can work with that. So just make it a more informative title. And then position it so that it's not obscuring the numbers next to it. Okay. So the next thing, we can remove these grid lines, these horizontal lines. You can just select them and just hit the delete key. That'll get rid of them. So now I also want to make sure that the axes are actually visible. The lines and the tick marks on the chart itself are visible. So I'm just going to select the x-axis, go over here to the formatting options. Going to add some tick marks on the outside. And then make sure that the line is actually visible by making it a dark grey, and you can see now they've popped out and you can see that they're much more visible. And I'm going to do the same thing on the y-axis. So now they're a lot more visible too. The other thing I like to do is to add markers for each of the data points. It just really helps define where that data point is. And that's really easy to do as well. So I'm just click on the Zostra data series, go to marker formatting, and just choose, I'm going to choose the square, make them a bit bigger. Then while I'm in here, I'm going to make the line a little bit thinner. The blue line, right now it's 3 point. I think that's too thick. I'm going to take that down to 1.5. So now you can see the difference that makes just doing that to the Zostra data series. So now I'm just going to do the same thing to the Rupiah data series. I'm going to add a marker. This one I'm going to make it into a circle. And then again, make the line thinner, down to 1.5 points thick. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We've already made some pretty good improvements to this chart, just doing very few simple things here in Excel. So now I'm going to make this title a bit more meaningful. Instead of Zostra versus Rupiah, I'm going to actually make it an active title that describes the data. Grow fastest in summer. So now it actually describes the data. It sums up the take-home message of this chart. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is remove the background of the chart. Right now it has a white background. So you'll notice if you copy and paste it from here into PowerPoint, you'll keep that white background, even if the background of your slide is light blue or yellow or another color. So by removing the chart background, it makes it transparent, so you can copy and paste it onto different colored backgrounds without that white box. So I'll just select the chart like this, and here choose no fill and then no line for the border. So now you can see the cells coming through behind the chart, which means that it's transparent. Okay, so that looks pretty good, and you can copy and paste this right from Excel into your PowerPoint presentation if that's what the destination is, or you can keep improving it in Illustrator, and I'll show you a couple of things to do in there. So we're just going to copy it once the chart is selected, switch over to Illustrator, and then we're going to paste. Okay, and you'll see the text has all become gibberish, and this is something that happens fairly often when you are switching between Excel and Illustrator. I don't know why it happens, but it's really annoying. So what you have to do is go back to Excel. It's because of this font, the Calibri font, that's the default in Excel. Illustrator doesn't like that font for whatever reason. I don't understand it. So we have to make it into a font that Illustrator can read. And in my experience, Helvetica is a good one. You know, it's a good kind of generic sans serif font that's readable, and it also agrees with Illustrator. So, okay, let's try that again. Copy. Oh, you know, I'm going to make this a bit wider. I noticed when I changed the font that these labels here ended up on a diagonal, which is fine. We can work with that in Illustrator, but if we make the graph a bit wider, it then changes them back to being horizontal. And I'm going to italicize the seagrass genus names as well. Okay, so now that looks pretty good. I'm going to copy that again, go to Illustrator, and paste. So now the text has come along, and it's actually readable, which is good. That's what we want. Okay, so there are, you can see there's all these rectangles down here that have come across. There's these kinds of rectangles. So when you paste from Excel into Illustrator, because the programs don't really talk that well to each other, Illustrator puts in all these clipping masks and other objects into the Excel into the chart, which we want to get rid of. So if you are familiar with Illustrator, I'm going to go to the Layers palette over here on the left. If you open that up, you'll see there's all these clipping masks here, these clip groups. And we want to release all of those, or just basically to get rid of them. So if you go up, once everything's selected, go up to Object, down to Clipping Mask, and then Release. And you'll see everything's kind of been released. The only thing that's left is there's all these squares around here that were used as the clipping masks, so we need to get rid of them. And so I find a good way to do that is to go up to the top right corner of the chart where there is nothing to select except for these masks, and draw a marquee over these rectangles that's going to select them so we can delete them. So do that and then just hit delete. And so there was also down at the bottom here, the month names. There seems to be a lot of clipping masks down there too, so we need to get rid of those. But we need to make sure that we don't delete the month names, because we do want to keep them. So it's kind of a little bit tricky to select all of these without selecting the month names. So what I've done now is just selected the month names, and then I'm going to lock them so that we don't actually accidentally select them. And now I can go back and draw a marquee and select and delete all of those extra rectangles. And you can see when I have them selected over here in the color palette, it says they have no fill and no stroke. So they're just kind of artifact objects from copying and pasting from Excel. So I'm just going to delete these. So now we're starting to tidy this up a bit more. So in my presentation last week, I had the seagrass genus names right next to the data lines. So we can get rid of these data lines in the legend here and just move the seagrass genus names right next to the line that they're representing. And I'm going to change those to italics too, because they're scientific names. They should be in italics. Okay, the other thing that was bugging me was this all caps on the y-axis. So I think I want to change that to just regular case. I'm going to delete that second line because Excel Illustrator made it into 2 lines when it should be just 1. Okay, that looks pretty good. So the other thing that I would like to add along the bottom, although the months are probably pretty self-explanatory, I'm just going to add a label to the y-axis, to the x-axis, sorry, that just says month. So I'm going to copy the y-axis label to make sure that it's formatted the same. Then I'm going to spin it around 90 degrees. Put it down here. Okay. And so we want that to line up with the x-axis. So to do that, we select the label, hold down Shift and select the x-axis line. Then hit the x-axis line once more and you'll see it's kind of highlighted, which means that's the anchor that we're going to align the text label to. And so up here at the top we have our align functions. So I'm going to choose horizontal align center, and then that just moves the text label in line with the middle of the x-axis. Okay, that looks good. I'm going to move that a bit closer. So you can just do some tweaking here, make things look better. I might make these axis labels bold to make them stand out a little bit. And see, now the y-axis label is no longer lined up in the middle of the y-axis, so I'm just going to fix that. Using the same technique, select the label, select the axis, one more click on the axis to highlight it, and then this one is vertical align center. So there you go. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is add a couple of Ian symbols to the seagrass names over here. So I'm going to open up our symbol libraries like you did with Brienne. Seagrasses have their own. Okay, and so I'm going to choose to view by list view so that I can look at the genus to make sure I get the right one. Okay, there's our Rupia symbol. I'm going to drag that onto my artboard. And then these are alphabetical, so Zostra is going to be at the bottom. And we don't actually have a Zostra marina symbol, which is a glaring omission in our symbol library, so I'm going to use a different species, but we'll just say that it's Zostra marina. Okay, so now you can place that next to the text label, resize it to fit next to it, and we'll do the same with the Rupia. Don't forget to hold down Shift key when you're resizing in Illustrator to make sure that it resizes in proportion. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I hope you guys have all had some fun trying to improve your graphs, and that's it from me. I will see you on Thursday. Bye.